The year is 1892, and the night has come slowly and softly and with great purpose, rolling in off the River Mersey like a warm grey blanket drawn across the shoulders of the city. Liverpool breathes around you in the amber dusk, its chimneys trailing pale threads of smoke upward into an apricot sky, its cobblestones shining faintly from an earlier rain, its narrow gas-lit streets humming with the last restless energy of the working day. Horse-drawn carriages clatter past on the quayside, their iron wheels ringing against the stone, their lamps swinging yellow arcs through the gathering fog. Porters in dark waistcoats move luggage with swift, practiced efficiency, calling to one another across the noise of the docks, their breath rising in little clouds of white. And somewhere beyond all of it, beyond the warehouses and the cranes and the coal yards and the custom sheds, there rises the sound that has drawn you here tonight, the low, resonant, deeply satisfying sound of a great steam whistle calling out across the river, announcing itself to the world. She is here. The Royal Mail steamer, your ship for this crossing, rests at the quayside in a pool of electric light that seems to push the darkness back a full 100 yards in every direction. Even from a distance, even with the evening mist softening her edges, she is enormous, breathtakingly so, a dark wall of iron and steel and riveted plating rising from the black water of the dock like a city block that has somehow been convinced to float. Her 4 tall funnels, 2 of them active even now, exhale long, lazy plumes of pale smoke that drift and twist and dissolve into the Liverpool sky above. Her hull, painted a deep and lustrous black along the waterline and a rich cream above, gleams with the reflections of the dock lamps. And her name, painted in proud gold lettering on her bow, catches the electric light and holds it, warm and steady and sure, as if to say, I am here, I am ready, and I have made this crossing many times before. Trust me with the night. You pause on the quayside for just a moment because this is one of those sights that deserves a pause. Steam rises gently from the surface of the dock water around her hull, where the warmth of the engine rooms below has bled through the iron plating into the cold river. The air here smells of coal smoke and brine and the particular mineral tang of the Mersey itself, and beneath all of that, very faintly, the smell of good cooking drifting down from the ship's galley several decks above, something rich and savoury, carried on the evening air like a private invitation. You are invited. This is the age of the great ocean liner. Not the age of sail, which demanded submission to wind and weather and weeks of uncertain passage. Not the age of the earliest and most tentative steamships, those brave but uncomfortable pioneering vessels of the 1840s and 50s, when Charles Dickens himself crossed the Atlantic on Cunard's first steamship, and found his cabin to be, in his own memorable words, an utterly impractical and thoroughly hopeless box. No, this is something else entirely. This is the age in which the Victorian passion for engineering, for precision, for the confident application of iron and science and human ingenuity has been turned toward the task of defeating the Atlantic Ocean. And it has succeeded magnificently. The ship before you is 500 feet long and built entirely of steel, the modern material of the age, stronger and lighter than iron, capable of being shaped and curved and riveted into forms that would have been impossible a generation ago. She displaces more than 10,000 tons of water simply by resting in it. Her engines, deep in her hull, where they have been running gently for hours now in preparation for tonight's departure, are triple expansion steam engines, a masterpiece of late Victorian mechanical engineering, capable of driving this vast vessel across the Atlantic in under 8 days at a cruising speed that would have seemed fantastical to your grandparents. She is crewed by 400 officers, engineers, stewards, cooks, stokers and seamen, every one of them well acquainted with their post, every one of them already at their duties. The ship is alive, and she has been alive for hours, and she will be alive for every hour of the days and nights ahead, breathing and turning and vibrating with controlled, purposeful energy beneath your feet. You lift your traveling case, straighten your coat against the evening chill, and walk toward the gangway. The gangway is wide and gently inclined, carpeted in a deep burgundy that muffles the sound of your footsteps, its brass handrails polished to such a bright and unapologetic shine that they seem almost to generate their own light. Above you, the great black overhang of the ship's side blocks out the sky. Below you, between the edge of the gangway and the hull, a narrow strip of dark dock water slips past, glittering with reflected lamplight. And then you step through the opening in the ship's side, through the heavy steel door that a smartly uniformed steward holds open for you with a practiced and unhurried courtesy, and all at once the outside world is gone. The warmth reaches you first. It is the warmth of a well-kept house, of a room that has been heated and aired and attended to, and it wraps around you the moment you cross the threshold with a thoroughness that is almost startling after the chill of the quayside. It is not the aggressive, drying heat of a coal fire turned too high, but a deep, even, enveloping warmth that seems to come from the walls themselves, from the wooden paneling and the thick carpets and the amber electric light that glows in the brass fittings along the corridor ceiling. The ship runs her heating through a system of pipes fed by steam from the engine rooms, and it works quietly and continuously, a kind of slow mechanical heartbeat that keeps every corner of the vessel at a perfectly civilized temperature, regardless of what the Atlantic may be doing outside. The entrance hall, which the shipping line calls the companionway, is panelled entirely in polished mahogany, a warm reddish-brown wood that has been fitted and finished with the same care and precision one might expect from the interior of a fine London club. The grain of the wood catches the electric light and seems to shift and deepen as you move, as if the panels themselves were breathing. Brass fixtures are everywhere, the frames of the electric light fittings, the hinges of the connecting doors, the edges of the small mirrors placed at intervals along the wall, and every piece of brass has been polished until it throws back a warm and slightly rounded reflection of the corridor around it. The carpet beneath your feet is thick enough that you can feel the softness through the soles of your shoes, a deep patterned carpet, in burgundy and navy and cream, the kind of carpet that absorbs sound so thoroughly that the companionway feels hushed and private and intimate, despite the fact that other passengers are moving through it in both directions. A steward appears at your elbow, young and neat in his dark uniform, his manner both attentive and entirely unhurried, and he takes your travelling case with one hand, while consulting a small card in his other, and he leads you forward and upward through the ship, through a succession of connecting corridors and a broad carpeted staircase toward your stateroom.
As you follow him, you begin to take in the details of the ship around you. The curved, vaulted ceiling above the main staircase, which has been painted in a pale cream and fitted with a skylight of frosted glass, through which, in daytime, the sky would be visible. The carved wooden balusters of the staircase railing, each one turned and shaped into a slightly different nautical motif, shells and waves and ropework, the work of craftsmen who understood that a ship might carry its passengers faster and more safely than any vessel in history, but that it ought also to carry them beautifully. The electric light here is softer, slightly warmer in tone, and it falls across the polished wood and the brass fittings in a way that makes everything glow, as if the ship were lit from within.
Somewhere below you, very far below, deep in the lower decks of the vessel, you can feel it already, the faintest vibration, transmitted upward through the floors and the walls and the very structure of the ship, from the engines that are even now running slowly, keeping themselves warm and ready. It is a deep vibration, lower in frequency than sound, something you feel in the soles of your feet and the base of your spine, rather than hear with your ears, and it is extraordinarily reassuring. It says very clearly, and without any possibility of misunderstanding, something immense is working down here, something powerful and precise, and entirely under control, and it will not stop. Not tonight, not tomorrow, not until you see the lights of New York Harbor rising from the Western Sea. But first the ship itself, because the ship is worth mowing, and the evening is young, and your stateroom will be there when you are ready for it.
The public rooms of a great Victorian ocean liner are, it must be said, one of the genuine wonders of the age. The shipping lines of the 1880s and 90s, Cunard, White Star, the Inman Line, the Red Star Line, and their German competitors at North German Lloyd and the Hamburg America Line, were engaged in a competition so intense and so earnest and so spectacularly well funded that each successive ship they launched seemed to outdo the last, not merely in size and speed, but in the quality and opulence of the interiors. They had understood, these Victorian shipping magnates, that the very wealthy did not need to cross the Atlantic. They could stay in their country houses, or travel overland through Europe, or do a dozen other things that did not require committing themselves to a week at sea. If the shipping lines wanted their money, and they very much did, then the ship itself had to be worth traveling on. The journey had to be as desirable as the destination. And so they had hired the same architects and designers who were at that very moment fitting out the Savoy Hotel in London and the finest dining rooms and gentlemen's clubs of the city, and they had given them steel hulls 500 feet long and said, "Make something extraordinary." And the results were, by any honest measure, exactly that. The first-class Grand Saloon, which is the great communal heart of the ship's public life, is located amidships, deliberately so, in the part of the vessel that moves the least when the ship encounters any sort of ocean swell, a practical consideration that the White Star Line had pioneered in the 1870s and that every serious shipping company had since adopted. It is a long, high-ceilinged room, panelled in lighter wood than the corridors, a pale honey-coloured oak finished to a gentle sheen, its walls divided into sections by slender pilasters, columns of carved wood that run from the carpeted floor to the cornice above and give the room a measured architectural dignity. The electric lights here are fitted into elaborate brass brackets that protrude from the pilasters at intervals, each one shaded by a globe of slightly frosted glass that diffuses the electric glow into something warm and even and gentle, something that falls across the room without casting hard shadows, illuminating the deep green of the upholstered chairs and the rich jeweled tones of the patterned carpet and the glint of the brass instruments on the small writing tables arranged along the walls. There is already a small gathering here this evening, passengers who have come aboard in the late afternoon and found their way to the saloon with the instincts of people long accustomed to the social rituals of ocean travel. A gentleman in a dark evening coat reads a folded newspaper near one of the brass fittings, lamps, his reading glasses balanced on the end of his nose, his expression one of complete and unhurried contentment. Two women in evening dress sit together in deep upholstered chairs near the center of the room, talking in the low, easy tones of old acquaintances, their voices barely audible above the soft, deep hum of the ship. A steward moves among the tables with a tray of glasses, offering bouillon, that staple of shipboard evening life, thin, clear beef broth served in small cups, warm and faintly saline and intensely comforting, a drink designed by someone who understood exactly what a passenger needed after a long journey to the docks and the slight excitement of embarkation. You take a cup. You sit for a moment in one of the deep chairs near the windows, which at this hour show nothing but the reflection of the room itself back at you from the darkness outside, and you feel the warmth of the broth through the thin porcelain of the cup, and you feel the gentle vibration of the ship beneath the chair, and you begin, for the first time since you set out this morning, to release the accumulated tension of the day, letting it drain away slowly like water from a bath, until what remains is something quieter and more spacious and altogether more pleasant.
Beyond the grand saloon, toward the stern of the ship, lies the smoking room, which is the domain at this hour of the evening of the gentlemen aboard. It is a darker and more masculine space than the saloon, panelled in deep walnut and fitted with heavy leather chairs, the leather a rich tobacco brown that has taken on, over the months and crossings, the particular deep lustre of something very well used and very well cared for. The electric lights here are lower and more amber in tone, positioned in brass fittings along the walls and on the heavy tables between the chairs, creating pools of warm illumination that leave the corners and the ceiling in a comfortable shadow. A coal fire burns in the grate set into one of the ship's structural frames, a proper coal fire with real flames that gutter slightly in response to some distant vibration, its light warm and dancing and alive in a way that the electric lights, however comfortable, cannot quite replicate. The mantelpiece above it is of carved mahogany, and on it rests a brass clock whose steady tick is just audible above the general hum of the ship, marking time with the even, unhurried confidence of a mechanism that knows exactly what it is doing. The air here carries the ghost of many crossings' worth of pipe tobacco and cigar smoke, absorbed into the wood and the leather and the thick carpet over years of Atlantic voyaging, a smell that is not unpleasant but is very particular, very evocative, a smell that has come to mean, for anyone who has made this crossing before, the first evening out, the gradual uncoiling of the week ahead, the comfortable suspension of ordinary life that the sea provides. Toward the bow of the ship, on the other side of the grand saloon, lies the ladies' drawing-room, which is a lighter and more gracefully decorated space, its walls fitted with panels of pale silk in a pale sage green, its chairs upholstered in floral patterns of ivory and rose, its electric lights shaded in cream rather than amber.
There is a small upright piano here, its lid closed for now, its polished case catching the lamplight in a long, gentle streak of gold. Bookshelves along one wall hold a selection of novels and travel memoirs and illustrated magazines, and a small writing desk near the window is fitted with paper and pens and ink for the letters home that will be posted from New York in 6 days' time. The overall effect of the room is one of great comfort and privacy, a space designed to feel like a well-appointed drawing room in a good house, which is precisely what its designers intended. A ship that felt like a house that moved at 18 knots through the dark Atlantic. That was the ambition, and on the evidence of these rooms, lit and warm and waiting, the ambition had been met. But the rooms are only the surface of the thing. To understand what you are truly inside tonight, you must understand what lies beneath them. Come then, let us go deeper.
The engine rooms of a great Victorian ocean liner occupy a space at the very center and lowest reaches of the ship. A space so vast and so filled with machinery that stepping into it for the first time produces a sensation not unlike stepping into the inside of a clock. Every surface is occupied. Every piece of steel and brass and copper has its purpose. The air is warmer here, considerably warmer, heated by the proximity of the boilers and the friction of the engines, and it carries in it the smell of hot metal and oil, and the particular mineral scent of steam that has been raised and compressed and put to work. The sound is deeper here, more complex, a layered rhythmic sound composed of the hiss of steam through pipes, the slow revolutions of the massive crankshafts, the steady thrum of the twin propeller shafts that run aft from the engines toward the stern, turning at this moment slowly, barely faster than a walking pace, just enough to keep the ship maneuvering in the dock. The triple expansion steam engines that power this ship are, without question or argument, among the most sophisticated pieces of machinery that the 19th century has yet produced. They work on a principle of breathtaking elegance. Steam from the boilers, raised to a high pressure in the furnaces where the stokers work their long watches, is admitted first to a small high-pressure cylinder where it expands and drives the piston once, then passes on, not wasted but redirected, into a medium-pressure cylinder, where it expands again, doing more work, then passes on again into a large low-pressure cylinder, where the last of its energy is extracted in a final, slow, powerful expansion. 3 stages of work from a single charge of steam, 3 uses of the same energy. It is efficient in a way that the early marine engines of the 1840s and 50s, those fuel-hungry, coal-devouring giants that made the early crossings so expensive, could never have been. And it is this efficiency that has made the modern transatlantic service commercially viable, that has allowed the shipping lines to fill their bunkers with coal in Liverpool and cross 3,000 miles of open ocean and arrive in New York with fuel to spare. The boilers that feed these engines are enormous cylindrical vessels of riveted steel, each one taller than a man and considerably longer, arranged in rows in the boiler rooms that lie forward of the engine rooms. Inside each boiler, water is heated by coal fires burning in furnace grates below, raised to temperatures and pressures that would be dangerous without the careful attention of the engineering staff, who monitor them at every hour of every day and night of the crossing. The stokers, the men who feed the furnaces, work in shifts of 4 hours on and 8 hours off, a rotation designed to manage the punishing heat and labor of their work, shoveling coal from the bunkers into the furnace grates with a rhythm and precision that has been refined over decades of deep-sea steamship practice.
Their world is hot and loud and lit by the flickering amber light of open furnace doors, and it is as far from the soft amber lamplight of the first-class saloon above as it is possible to be while still being within the same vessel. But consider what their work produces. Consider the chain that runs from those furnace grates through the steam pipes and the cylinders and the crankshafts all the way to the twin propellers turning in the dark water beneath the ship's stern. Each propeller a massive casting of bronze, 15 feet in diameter, 4 broad blades that grip the water and push it backward with a force that sends the ship forward. 10,000 tons of steel and wood and human life moving through the Atlantic at a steady, powerful, unstoppable 18 knots. The stoker's work, the engineer's vigilance, the propeller's grip on the ocean, these are what stand between you and the sea, and they are more than adequate. They have been adequate for many thousands of crossings, and they will be adequate tonight. Now feel it. Close your eyes for a moment if you like, and simply feel it.
The vibration that comes up through the soles of your feet as you stand anywhere on this ship is the vibration of those engines. It is deep and slow and utterly regular, a pulse as dependable as a heartbeat, a rhythm that does not speed up or slow down or hesitate or skip, but simply continues, steady and enormous and sure, hour after hour, night after day. It is the vibration of controlled power, a force applied with precision and intelligence, and it is, in its way, one of the most comforting sensations that the modern world has to offer, because it means that the engines are running. It means that the ship is moving. It means that 400 people, every one of them skilled in their duty, are awake and at their posts and attending to the machinery that surrounds you, that the engineers are watching their gauges, that the stokers are feeding their furnaces, that the officers on the bridge are watching the compass and the sea, and that none of them have any intention of stopping until the harbor lights of New York appear on the western horizon in approximately 160 hours' time. You are enclosed in iron and steel 6 inches thick. You are surrounded by 400 professionals who have made this crossing dozens of times. You are carried by engines of extraordinary reliability and power, and the Atlantic, vast and cold and dark as it is, has no purchase on you tonight. The steel hull between you and the ocean is as complete a defense as engineering can provide. The sea cannot reach you, the cold cannot find you, the dark cannot touch you. All you have to do is rest. But before you rest, there is dinner. And dinner on a great Victorian ocean liner in the 1890s is an event that deserves, at the very least, the same attention you would give it at the finest dining room in London or Paris or New York. The first-class dining saloon is the grandest room on the ship, located amidships on the saloon deck, and it is designed to make that fact immediately apparent to anyone who enters it. The ceiling is high, supported by a series of slender decorative columns finished in gilded plasterwork, and in the center of the ceiling a skylight of stained glass in a deep marine blue and amber has been fitted, which in daylight would flood the room with colored light, and which tonight, illuminated from above by a cluster of electric fittings, glows from within like a jewel. Long dining tables, fitted with the finest white linen and set with silver that catches and multiplies the electric light, run the width of the room, each place setting arranged with the sort of geometrical precision that suggests the work of stewards who have been setting these tables for many crossings and have not once grown careless. The silver is heavy and well-shaped, the crystal glasses are thin and clear, and at each place a small folded card of cream paper bears the passenger's name in a fine copper-plate hand, a personal detail that says, "We know you are here, we know your name, and we have thought about where you should sit." The food itself has been loaded onto the ship in Liverpool this afternoon in quantities that would astonish a household cook. 20,000 pounds of fresh beef alone, packed in ice in the ship's cold storage holds, along with hundreds of pounds of fish and fowl and game, mountains of fresh vegetables and fruit, sacks of flour and sugar and rice, casks of wine and spirits and ale, hundreds of bottles of champagne in the wine cellar, wheels of cheese and crates of biscuits and tins of preserved goods arranged in the dry stores with the same systematic attention to quantity and position that governs every other aspect of the ship's provisioning. A Victorian ocean liner going to sea is as self-contained as a small town. She carries everything she needs, and she has been provisioned by professionals who know exactly how much a ship full of passengers will consume in 8 days, and who have calculated accordingly, with a comfortable margin of surplus.
Tonight's dinner begins with soup, a consommé of exceptional clarity, made this afternoon from the stock that has been simmering since the morning, and it arrives in wide, shallow bowls, steaming gently, its surface scattered with a few fine herbs. It is the first proper hot food many of the passengers have had since breakfast, and the effect on the mood of the dining room is immediate and pleasant. Conversation, which had been tentative and a little formal in the early minutes of the first course, relaxes noticeably as the soup is consumed, and by the time the fish course arrives, turbot in a cream sauce, finished with a little white wine, the room has settled into that particular pleasant hum that a well-fed, well-lit dining room achieves when everything is going exactly as it should. The main courses follow in the measured, unhurried procession of a Victorian dinner designed to last 2 hours: roast beef with all its accompaniments, a remove of duck with an orange sauce, a braised saddle of lamb, and alongside them the vegetables, the potatoes, the gravies and the sauces that transform a meal into an occasion. The stewards move among the tables with the quiet efficiency of people who have done this many times before, refilling glasses before they are empty, removing plates before they are asked to, attending to each table in a rhythm so practiced as to be nearly invisible. A ship's orchestra, a small ensemble of 4 musicians, plays from a raised area at the far end of the dining room, their music light and pleasant and perfectly calibrated to the ambient noise of the room, audible but not intrusive, present but not demanding, exactly the right accompaniment to the sound of crystal and silver and the low, pleasurable hum of 100 conversations, all taking place at once. You eat slowly and with attention, which is the only correct way to eat a dinner on the first evening out. Outside the saloon's portholes, the darkness is now complete, and Liverpool is long behind you, somewhere astern in the Irish Sea, growing smaller by the minute as the engines drive the ship forward through the smooth, dark water. The lights of the Welsh coast are just visible to starboard, small and scattered and far away, and they too will be gone before the dessert arrives. Ahead of you is the open Atlantic, 3,000 miles of it, and beyond that, America. Dessert is served, a selection of puddings and pastries and a compote of preserved fruits, followed by the cheese course, and then coffee and small chocolates wrapped in gold paper, and then the gradual, comfortable drift away from the tables as the dinner comes gently to an end, the passengers dispersing to the saloon and the smoking room and the drawing room with the slightly dazed and deeply satisfied air of people who have dined rather better than they expected. You accept a small coffee, and you hold the thin porcelain cup in both hands for a moment, and you let the warmth of it spread into your palms, and you listen to the sound of the ship around you, the orchestra finishing a waltz, the low conversation of the passengers, the distant, steady, ever-present vibration of the engines, and the very faint, almost subliminal sound of the ocean pressing against the outside of the hull. 3,000 miles of it, beginning just the other side of that half-inch of polished glass in the porthole above your table. It sounds, from in here, entirely manageable. Later, after the coffee, you find your way to the promenade deck. The promenade deck is the highest of the enclosed public decks, running the full length of the first-class section of the ship, a long, wide, covered walkway that runs along both sides of the vessel and is protected from the elements by a roof that extends from the superstructure above and glass screens at the forward end that deflect the wind. Even here, the comfort is conspicuous. The deck planking beneath your feet is teak, the dense, hard, fine-grained tropical wood that Victorian shipbuilders prized for deck surfaces because it was impervious to salt water and, once wet, provided a grip that bare leather soles could trust. It has been caulked between the planks with black oakum, the tarred fibre that seals the joints and gives the deck its characteristic dark striped pattern, and it is smooth and solid underfoot in a way that makes each step feel purposeful and assured.
You have brought your coat, and you are glad of it. The evening air on the open deck is cool and carries in it the smell of the open sea, a smell quite different from the harbour smell of Liverpool, cleaner and sharper and more saline, with a faint mineral quality that seems to carry within it the suggestion of very great distances. The ship's speed adds a gentle wind to the deck, not enough to be uncomfortable, but enough to be felt, a steady pressure against your face and the front of your coat, cool and fresh and edged with the slightest salt, and it clears your head in the most agreeable way, replacing the warmth and the food and the lamplight of the dining room with something altogether more bracing and more real. The sea tonight is calm, or rather, it is calm in the way that a very large and very ancient thing is calm, which is to say that it is not still, not flat, not glassy in the manner of an inland lake, but moving in long, slow swells of considerable amplitude, deep rollers that travel across the surface of the ocean from some distant disturbance, arriving at the ship's hull in a gentle rhythmic succession that sets the vessel rocking very slightly, almost imperceptibly, a long, slow roll from side to side that takes perhaps 8 or 10 seconds to complete, and that you feel mostly in the legs, a slight shift of weight and balance that your body quickly learns to anticipate and accommodate. It is not unpleasant. It is in fact rather like being rocked, like being held in something very large and very patient, and set gently in motion with the most benign of intentions. But it is what you can see above the sea that commands your attention now. The sky above the Atlantic on a clear night in the middle of the ocean is one of the great spectacles available to any human being who cares to look at it. And on this evening, with the clouds that covered Liverpool now dissolving astern in the Irish Sea, and the open Atlantic ahead, under a sky that seems to have been polished by the wind, it is something close to overwhelming. The stars here are not the cautious and occasional stars visible through the lamp-lit haze of a city, but the full, unconstrained, magnificent result of the universe doing its work without any interference from below. There are so many of them, and they are so bright, and they are so distributed across every portion of the sky from horizon to horizon, that the sky no longer looks dark at all, but rather a deep, luminous indigo shot through with light, layer after layer of it,
the bright near stars, and the dimmer middle-distance stars, and the faint diffuse smudge of the Milky Way, running from south to north in a broad river of ancient light that your eyes, given time, can resolve into individual points of illumination, each one a sun as large as your own, at a distance so great that the number of miles required to express it becomes meaningless. Orion hangs above the western horizon, following the ship. The Pleiades cluster in the south, and low in the north, so close to the horizon that the slight movement of the ship occasionally dips them below it and then raises them again, the stars of the Great Bear turn in their slow, eternal circle around the pole star, which sits fixed and unwavering directly above the northern horizon, like a nail driven into the sky, the point around which everything else revolves. The navigator on the bridge above you, if he should need to confirm the ship's latitude tonight, needs only to measure the angle between the horizon and that star, using his sextant, and the ocean will tell him exactly where he is. The ocean will tell him, the sky will tell him, the engines will carry him, the hull will hold him. You lean on the promenade rail and look out at all of this for a while, the darkness and the stars and the long swells moving past the hull in a steady procession from somewhere far ahead, and you feel with some force the quality of your own position in it. Warm, enclosed, carried forward, entirely safe inside this enormous thing of iron and steam and human skill, while all around you the Atlantic performs its ancient and indifferent business, measuring itself in depths and distances that the 19th century has only just begun to comprehend.
A fellow passenger, an older gentleman in a good overcoat and a hat pressed down against the evening wind, comes to stand beside you at the rail. He does not speak for a long moment. He simply looks out at the same stars and the same sea, with the expression of a man who has made this crossing several times before, and who finds still, after all those crossings, that the sky on the open Atlantic at night rewards attention. After a while he says quietly, almost to himself, "Extraordinary, isn't it, every time?" You agree that it is, and then you are both quiet again, and the ship moves forward in the dark, and the engines turn far below, and the stars wheel very slowly overhead, and the ocean goes on and on and on in every direction to the curved edges of the world. But the night is not young, and your stateroom is waiting. A steward meets you as you come in from the promenade deck and escorts you, with a courtesy so quietly professional as to be almost impersonal, along the corridor to your cabin. The corridor is narrower than the public spaces, but no less carefully finished, its walls panelled in the same honey-coloured wood, its carpet thick and patterned underfoot, its brass fittings polished, and its electric lights turned down now to a lower setting, a softer, dimmer warmth that signals evening properly done, and encourages the corridor's proper function as a passage towards sleep. Your stateroom, when the steward opens the door and stands aside to let you enter, is a room of genuine and considered comfort. It is not large. No room on a ship is truly large, because every inch of space on a vessel this size has been accounted for, assigned to a purpose, and built to within precise tolerances that have been calculated by marine architects who understand intimately the relationship between a ship's displacement and her structural integrity. But it is arranged with a skill and a thoughtfulness that makes it feel considerably larger than its dimensions.
The berth, which is what the bed is called at sea, runs along one wall beneath the porthole, its frame of polished mahogany matching the paneling on the walls, its mattress deep and its linen fresh and white and cool. The bedclothes have been folded back and turned down by some attending steward in the hours since embarkation, a small, neat gesture of welcome that communicates very clearly that this room was prepared for you, that someone thought about your arrival here, that you were expected and are welcomed. Beside the berth, a small table of mahogany holds a brass reading lamp, currently burning at a low setting, and a small carafe of water covered with an inverted glass. Above the berth, the porthole is a circle of polished brass, perhaps 18 inches across, its thick glass fitted into the brass frame with a watertight seal of rubber gasket, and through it, if you stand close and look out into the darkness, you can see the sea passing 2 feet below the level of your eye, the long black surface of it broken by the white wake thrown from the bow, the water lit faintly by the glow that escapes from the portholes of the cabins around you and below you. The porthole is a window into the Atlantic, 2 feet of sea level, the water so close, but the glass is thick, the brass fitting is tight, the steel hull is 6 inches of rolled plate, riveted and corked, and designed to keep the ocean precisely where it belongs, which is outside. The Victorian engineers who built this ship did not guess at these measurements. They calculated them. They tested them. They built in margins of safety that a cautious man might consider excessive, and then they built in a little more. The hull of this ship has crossed the Atlantic many times before tonight, in weather that tested it thoroughly, and it has returned from every one of those crossings intact, its plates unmarked, its rivets sound, its watertight integrity uncompromised. The sea out there, 2 feet beyond the glass, is aware of none of this. It simply moves as it has always moved, according to forces that have nothing to do with ships or passengers or the ambitions of the Victorian age. But the ship is very much aware of it. The ship has been built to be aware of it, to respond to it, to manage it, to accommodate its motions and deflect its pressures and continue on course regardless of what the ocean may choose to do tonight.
You look through the porthole for a moment, and the water slides past in the darkness, and the wake curls and foams and vanishes astern into the night. And then you straighten, and you draw the small brass curtain rod across the porthole and pull the heavy curtain, a thick velvet in a deep marine blue, across the glass, and the ocean disappears. The stateroom closes around you, warm and amber lit and quiet, and the sound of the engines deepens slightly, or perhaps it is only that, with the ocean hidden, you attend to the engines more fully, feeling their vibration through the berth frame when you rest your hand against it, slow and deep and perfectly regular, a mechanical pulse that has been beating since the engine room first came to life this morning and will not stop until the journey ends. There is a small wardrobe of mahogany on the opposite wall, your luggage arranged within it by the same attentive steward who has clearly been busy in the hours since your things were brought aboard. On the table beside the berth, your book is there, and your watch, and the small leather travel case with its bottles and brushes. The room smells of polished wood and clean linen, and the very faint, entirely pleasant ghost of the sea, a clean marine smell that has seeped into the fabric of the ship over years of crossings and cannot quite be kept out, even here, in this warm and enclosed and carefully furnished room. You sit on the edge of the berth, and you remove your shoes, and you feel the carpet beneath your stockinged feet, thick and soft and warm.
The electric lamp beside you throws a small circle of amber light across the pillow and the white linen and the mahogany bedhead, and beyond that circle the room is in comfortable shadow. The ship moves forward through the Atlantic at 18 knots. The engines turn, the propellers grip the water and push it back. The hull divides the sea and lets it close again behind. And all of this, every revolution of every cylinder, every shovelful of coal in the furnaces below, every degree of the compass held by the officers on the bridge, is in the service of your passage. 400 people are awake and working tonight so that you may sleep. It is a remarkable thing when you think about it. You do not think about it for very long, because the berth is deep and the linen is cool and clean, and once you have laid yourself down and pulled the coverlet up over your shoulders, the body, which has been waiting patiently for this moment since before dinner, makes its own quiet argument for sleep. The pillow receives the weight of your head with a gentleness that is almost tender. The mattress conforms around you with the slight firmness and yielding of good quality horsehair and cotton batting, materials chosen by people who understood that sleep is not a luxury at sea, but a necessity, and a passenger who sleeps well arrives rested and in good humor, which reflects well on the shipping line and ensures their return custom. The lamp is turned low. The brass curtain keeps the porthole dark. And now the sounds of the ship arrange themselves, as they always do, in the last waking minutes before sleep, into a pattern that the mind begins to hear not as noise, but as music, or something very close to music. The deepest note, the fundamental bass of the whole composition, is the engine vibration, felt more than heard, a tremor that enters the body through the mattress and the berth frame and moves upward through bones and breath in a slow, steady rhythm, 5 seconds per revolution of the crankshaft, perhaps slightly faster than that, and then again, and then again. It does not vary, it does not hesitate, it is as regular as the beat of a large and very healthy heart.
Above that, just above the threshold of hearing, the sound of the sea against the hull, not crashing, not threatening, not dramatic in any way, but a long, slow, hissing passage of water along steel, a sound like the turning of a great page or the sighing of something very large in its sleep. The long swells that the ship rides over translate in this cabin to a slight, slow, periodic shift in the pitch of that sound, a deepening as the bow dips into the trough of a swell, and a lightening as it rises again, a rhythm of perhaps 8 seconds from trough to crest to trough again, so long and slow that the body receives it not as motion, but as something closer to breathing. The ship breathes, the engines pulse, the sea slides past. Somewhere further off on another deck, a door closes softly. A steward's footsteps pass along the corridor outside, unhurried and quiet, the thick carpet absorbing the sound until it is no more than a whisper, and then nothing. The ship's bell sounds distantly from somewhere above, marking the half-hour in the old maritime tradition. 2 strokes and then silence, a sound that has been marking the passage of shipboard nights since long before these vessels existed, carried forward from the age of sail into the age of steam, a small ceremony of timekeeping that the ocean itself seems to acknowledge with a momentary deepening of the sound along the hull. The electric lamp has been turned down now to its lowest setting, and the amber glow it casts is barely enough to see by, barely enough to distinguish the white of the pillow from the polished mahogany of the berth frame, and your eyes, given nothing to fix upon, let go of the habit of looking, and sink into the warmth behind the eyelids, where everything is the same gentle amber as the lamp, and everything moves with the same slow, easy motion as the ship.
Think for a moment, if you are still capable of thinking, of where you are. 3,000 miles of ocean in every direction, the nearest land behind you, England, growing smaller by the hour, the nearest land ahead of you, Ireland, already passing in the north, its lights invisible from here, and beyond that, nothing, nothing at all, only the great grey ocean rolling westward in its ancient, indifferent way until it meets the continental shelf of North America and begins to shallow out toward the harbors and the cities and the green hills of the New World. You are suspended in the middle of all of this in a ship of 500 feet and 10,000 tons, held up by the displacement of water, pushed forward by the force of steam, enclosed in the careful engineering of the 19th century's finest minds, and you are as safe as if you were asleep in your own bed at home, perhaps safer, because here there is nothing to trouble you, nothing to attend to, nothing that requires your presence or your attention or your decision until the journey ends. The Cunard Line, which launched its first steamship service in 1840, has been carrying passengers across the Atlantic for more than 50 years without losing a single one to the sea. The White Star Line, whose innovations in cabin comfort and dining saloon placement defined the standards that every serious competitor then adopted, has been making the Liverpool to New York run with a reliability that the Postal Service itself uses as a benchmark for dependability. The ships are built better each decade, the engines are more efficient, the navigation is more precise, the weather forecasting transmitted by telegraph to the ship before departure allows the navigator to plan a route that avoids the worst of the winter weather patterns, threading the vessel along a track through the great ocean that balances speed against comfort in a calculation refined by decades of accumulated passage data. You are in very good hands, the best hands, in fact, that the 19th century can provide, which is to say, the hands of engineers and mariners who have devoted their professional lives to the management of this crossing, who know this ocean as a scholar knows their subject, who have trained in it, sailed in it, studied it, and who treat the responsibility of carrying passengers across it with the gravity and precision that it deserves. The engine vibration is there, always there, entering your body through the berth, steady and deep and reassuring. The sea slides along the hull, 10 inches of steel and ocean between you and the deep water, an arrangement that holds perfectly and has held perfectly and will continue to hold perfectly for every mile of the 3,000 ahead.
The ship's bell sounds again, far away now, or perhaps it is just that your hearing is retreating, pulling back from the sounds of the outer world and attending instead to the slower, quieter, more internal sounds that come before sleep, the sound of your own breathing, the sound of your own pulse, which is slower now, considerably slower than it was in Liverpool this evening, slowed by the warmth and the dinner and the dark and the long, patient rhythm of the engines working below. The Atlantic is out there, enormous and cold and dark and ancient, and you are in here, warm, fed, safe, enclosed in iron and lamplight, and the knowledge that the ship will carry you through the night as it has carried hundreds of passengers before you and will carry hundreds after, westward through the dark, steady as the stars. Sleep then. The engines will not stop, the hull will hold, the stars above the promenade deck will turn their slow wheel through the night, Orion descending toward the western sea as the hours pass, the pole star fixed and unwavering in the north, and when the first grey light of the Atlantic dawn finds the porthole, you will be 300 miles further west than you are now,
300 miles closer to the harbor and the new city and the new world, and you will not have felt a single one of those miles pass, because you will have been asleep, carried in the arms of the most extraordinary machine your civilization has yet produced. The ship breathes, the engines pulse, the ocean sighs along the hull, and in this warm and amber-lit and wholly enclosed and deeply comfortable room in the middle of the Atlantic in the late Victorian age, on a ship that represents the absolute pinnacle of what the 19th century knew about building and propelling and navigating and caring for a vessel at sea, there is nothing left to do, and nothing left to think, and nothing left to attend to, only to let the rhythm carry you, only to let the warmth hold you, only to let the engine's deep, slow, steady pulse enter your body and match itself, breath by breath, to the rhythm of your sleep. The voyage has begun, and it is safe, and it is beautiful, and it will last all night. If this journey through the golden age of ocean travel brought you some comfort and rest tonight, then it has done exactly what it was meant to do. The history of these great ships, the Cunadas, the White Star liners, the magnificent floating palaces of the late Victorian and Edwardian age, is a history of human ambition and engineering genius, of a civilization that decided the Atlantic was something to be crossed in comfort and elegance, and then went about making it so. We will have more of these nocturnal voyages together, more quiet histories to carry you through the night, more rooms and corridors and engines and skies waiting to be explored in the hours before sleep. If the Nocturne of History is a place you'd like to return to, please do consider subscribing and leaving a like if this voyage suited you. Your support is what keeps the lights on in these dark and comfortable rooms. Good night. Safe crossing. Sleep well.